Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're here with us. We got a great show planned for you today, as usual, and we won't disappoint. It is our Friday. Yes, it is Friday. Our Friday focus on climate, as we vowed to focus on something that is pretty much focused every day on our mainstream media, state-run media, state-funded media, throughout Canada, and there's usually only one side of the table that's allowed to speak, allowed to give certain points of view, which develops a narrative, a certain idea that it sounds like everyone is on board with, which is not true, and you will find this out each and every Friday when you tune into Sudbury News Talk, is there's an alternative view by some very capable, educated people with experience that know what they're doing, top of their game, top of their industry, telling us that what you might be hearing on the mainstream state-funded, state-run media is not exactly true. And so I know a lot of people might take exception with that, but it's just because you're hearing just the one side all the time, and you don't get a chance to hear another side. And that's why I would invite everybody who is on whatever side of that discussion to listen on Fridays, at least, if that's something that you feel is important to you, the state of our planet and the climate, and you want to be, in the know with what's going on there. You don't only want to hear one side, right? It's like being a judge in a courtroom and only listening to one side. You're definitely only going to get so much of the information, and the decisions that you make then will not be the correct ones because they won't have all the information you need in order to make a decision. So welcome to the show. This is Sudbury News Talk. We come at you live each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning here in Greater Sudbury on CKLU, our campus and community radio station. CKLU 96.7 FM. It's been around since 1984. Started off broadcasting in a little trailer on Ramsey Lake Road at Laurentian University's main campus on the hill. And now, today, we are on the corner of Elgin and Elm, coming at you from the old Telegraph building, which is part of the new MacEwan School of Architecture. We're grateful for Laurentian University's partnership, and just wanted everyone to know that the views expressed on this show by either the host, guest hosts, or those commenting that are read or put up on the screen do not necessarily reflect those of Laurentian University, faculty or staff, that of CKLU's volunteers or staff, or that of any people associated with Laurentian University via the board or anything like that. They are that of the hosts, guest hosts, those commenting alone, and not necessarily those of anyone to do with Laurentian or CKLU. So just wanted to get that out of the way. And we are also coming at you live streaming at cklu.ca. Click on the Radio Player Canada app. You can stream us, or if you download the Radio Player Canada app, you can take us with you. Listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. We're also coming at you live on Facebook.com/Sudbury News, YouTube.com/Sudbury News live. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow those two platforms, and comment mainly because it's your conversation on your station. The show will live then on demand afterwards on those two platforms, along with Twitter, which is now X, so twitter.com/Sudbury News, and Sudbury.news, which is our local news aggregator, provided by yours truly, or Sudbury News, and you can find it at, again, Sudbury.news. Aggregates all the local news into one convenient location. We'll go over some of those news headlines today from that website. And if you haven't had a chance to visit it, check it out. If you're interested in local news, because it's all there. It's where you go for local news. It's pretty interesting. And it's a service to Sudbury.com, CTV Northern Ontario, CBC, Sudbury, and Sudbury Star, where all of the English local journalism lands on that particular page. And so we should actually, I've just been thinking about this right now, just as I'm speaking, we should include a French section as well, where we do the exact same. So all the French news outlets, CBC and Voyageur, and any other French local news outlets, we should have a section on the website for that. So that's the next order of business for Sudbury.news. So pay attention today. It's going to be great if you're interested in climate and what it means and what it is and why is it here and why is everybody making such a big thing about it? What's behind it? Is it what it is? Is it what we're hearing all the time? And this will come at you after news headlines, comments from those coming on. A shout out, good morning shout outs to everybody, and our weather, which is brought to you by Duck Check. We'll be back right after this. And as I said, Duck Check is our sponsor, our partner for our weather. And if you're interested in clean air, breathing clean air in your home, these guys have the equipment, the knowledge, the trustworthiness to make sure that your air in your home is clear and pure. You give them a call at 705-918-4848 or check them out at duckcheck.com. If you live in the Sudbury area or Muskoka, Parry Sound area, they've just expanded. Today, you can expect it right now, currently it's 11 degrees. It's mainly sunny. And today we can expect sunny, increasing cloudiness this afternoon, just in time for work to be done. And the wind will be gusting to 40 this morning. High of 21. UV index will be 8 or very high. Tonight, cloudy. 60% chance of showers overnight. Wind will be moderate, and the low will be 14. Saturday, showers with a risk of thunderstorms, and wind will be southwest, 20 kilometers, becoming light early in the morning. High of 22, humidex 29, so it'll be warm, and looks like warm and wet, and UV index will be 3 or moderate. So again, 22 showers tomorrow, 40% chance of showers on Sunday, 20 degrees. And then Canada Day, sunny. It stayed there for the last, 3 or 4 days. It said that Monday is going to be sunny. So high of 25. Tuesday, mix of sun and cloud, 24 degrees. And then the showers or the wet stuff rolls back in on Wednesday, 60% chance of showers, high of 25. And then 40% chance of showers on Thursday, high of 25 as well. Look at your satellite. Clear skies over Sudbury at the moment, but as you can see in the west coming towards us are a lot of clouds, and it looks like in the eye of these clouds coming towards us, there's a lot of activity going on in terms of precipitation, and that's what we will probably be getting overnight and into tomorrow right here in Sudbury. That's a look at your satellite and your weather, brought to you by Duck Check, serving Sudbury area, Muskoka area. Make sure to give them a call or check them out at duckcheck.com. If you're interested in getting your ducks clean and you're concerned about the quality of the air you breathe, they're the ones to call. 705-918-4848 or duckcheck.com. Let them know we sent you, and you'll get $100 off your next duck cleaning. We'll be back with your comments, news headlines, and much more right after this. Okay, and welcome back. I'm just looking at Facebook here on Fridays for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe the algorithm catches me saying a lot of what we're going to be talking about and does something, I don't know, to prevent more people from coming on. I have no idea about these algorithms. I just work here. I just volunteer here, actually. But yeah, looks like we have our family on YouTube on this morning already, waiting for the Facebook people to load. And there they are. So Nana, good morning. Good vibes. Yes, for sure. Thank you very much. We all need good vibes, don't we? And same to you, Nana. And Nancy, good morning, with a sunshine or a smiley emoji. My eyes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say sunshine, which it currently is outside until the clouds roll in. And good morning, India. I mean, no, this is Sudbury. Okay. Yes, I got it. Good morning, Sudbury. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for being on. And way to keep me awake in the morning. I appreciate that. So, Marianne on Facebook. Good morning, everyone from Barrie. Liked and shared as usual. And Judy, good morning. I hope you're having a good morning. And Sheila as well with a Canada flag, which it will be Canada Day in a few short days. It'll be sunny as well here in Greater Sudbury anyways. And Belinda, usually I get you thinking positive statement of the day. Good morning to you. She says the devil couldn't take you out, so he's trying to wear you out. Don't you dare get tired. Hold on, because the tide is turning. Yeah, there's definitely a tide turning for sure. You can feel the change in the air, and we are part of that change. You are part of that change. You can never underestimate the power of one and your influence, not only on yourself, but people around you, and then the broader community as well. So if you stay positive, respectful, and aware of what's going on in the world right around you and abroad, and you're able to have a certain perspective of it that is positive, that you're able to not let it get to you in a negative way, you could then show others that you're also able to, be positive in the midst of, some negative things going on in the world. And there's always good and bad, right? There's good and bad in this current phase of things, of life. And you have to learn to navigate those things. It's our duty, I guess, or responsibility, whatever, to have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, to use your analogy, Belinda, of the devil. I always thought it was a really great way or concept that cartoons showed that kind of confliction that human beings have between right decisions and wrong decisions, good and bad, choosing. Like a lot of us have been down that road. There's a fork. You come to it. You're like, I got to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to do the right thing, or am I going to compromise my own morals or ethics and do this thing that's going to benefit me maybe in the short term? And you make the decision. And sometimes you go left and sometimes you go right. But it's really, ultimately, that's what life is for. After you make the decision, then the real stuff begins. It's like, well, I did the right thing. I'm grateful that I stood my ground or took the high road here, and I feel good about that. Or you take the other road and you feel, maybe some remorse. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And now there's consequences for the decision that I've made, and now I'm going to have to. Now I have other decisions to make. Either I could rectify the situation, I could go on as if it didn't exist. But ultimately, this is what this life is for. It's really that. It's to make, to work those things out in this life. And hopefully by the end of it, we've refined ourselves and hopefully taken the forks in the road that are the high ground. And the more we do that, the more confident we feel in making the right decisions. And we can then look at others from afar who maybe aren't making those decisions and try to influence them just by sharing experiences, being yourself, just making right choices and allowing others to see what you've done and how your life is working out. And hopefully that teaches. A lot of times telling someone they've done something wrong isn't the greatest way to teach or to influence. Sometimes it's needed, but it's very rare. It's usually just you continuing to take the high ground, and then other people will see what you're doing, kind of thing. You put your light up so people can see it, but you don't yell at them and say, "Look at me," at the same time or whatever, because that's just will be detrimental to what you're trying to do. Then other people say, "Well, you're putting yourself higher than other people," which will never end up good for other people if you want to help them, right? Okay, a lot of people will look at that as being conceited or full of, pride or whatever in what you've done, and that's a fork in the road you go to too, right? If you've done made a lot of right choices in your life, staying humble about it and knowing that it wasn't just you that did it, you probably needed some help and things, and you don't attribute it to just yourself. And yeah. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense. It's early, right? It's early. I've only had a little bit of water. I've only woken up, within the half hour from the time we began the show. So anyways, good morning, Pat. Thanks for being with us. Got a sunshine and a smiley emoji. Much appreciated. Denise, blessings from Espanola. Blessings to you also, Denise. And Brian, good morning, Patriots. And as we celebrate Canada Day, let us celebrate what makes Canada such a great place to live. And part of it are those who sacrificed themselves, speaking of examples, for us to have this wonderful country that we've enjoyed for so many years. And to you as well, Brian, for being part of that. Debbie, good morning to you. Hope you're having a great morning. And Jerome, good morning, everyone from Timmins. This is our Northern Ontario traveler here, Jerome, and always makes an effort to check in and say hello to everybody each and every show. Good morning, Estelle. Thanks for being on. Hope you're having a great morning. And Marianne says, would love to see a day of blue skies without them being marked with chemtrails. Yes, it's interesting, right? When you look into the whole chemtrail thing. On one side, scientists are saying, yes, we do spray the skies because we're trying to cool down the earth because of what we're going to be talking about today, right? And on the other hand, there's all these debunkings of, no, that's just contrails, nothing to see here. It's been here ever since there's been planes. And it's just not the truth. And so I just wonder why there's such a huge campaign to call them contrails when they're not, in fact, contrails. I see many days when there's spraying going on all over the place, lines in the sky, which they would say was just contrails. And then I'll see a jet just fly by with nothing going on behind it in the exhaust. And people say, well, that's because of the altitude. And another thing, too, we don't have that many planes flying over Sudbury, for goodness sakes. Well, you think this is the most traveled space in the world? Like when you really look in all the different directions, like planes are going up to the North Pole. Like why would, you know what I mean? Like give your head a shake. These lines go all over crisscross. There's some days, hundreds of them. There's not that much air traffic going on over Sudbury. Okay. All right. So there, that's just yeah. Anyways, so good morning, Mona. Thanks for being on. Much appreciated, and hope you're having a great Friday. Monique, good day. Beautiful people. Sunshine emoji and a heart emoji. Belinda says Canada Day in Montreal is canceled there because there will be no parade. Pride Month in Montreal will continue, and the feds will provide money for security. Well, isn't that great for Montreal? Right? I mean, who wanted to celebrate Canada Day anyways? It's over celebrated. I mean, what's to celebrate when you can celebrate the other thing all the time? You know what I mean? Like, isn't that the real thing to celebrate? You know? Like, why celebrate a country when you can celebrate a movement? You know? It's what's happening. It's great. I mean, we should all just cancel Canada Day. I mean, what does it mean? What does it really mean anyways? You know, Justin Trudeau, he doesn't really support Canadians anyways. He's kind of hostile towards Canadians. The new Canada that he wants to build, that we've never really heard the full vision of, but he's destroying this Canada pretty well, and has said it very publicly that he's, changing. Well, he changed the national anthem. We're no longer mankind, we're people kind. Taking prayers out of the Remembrance Day ceremonies because it's offensive. The list goes on and on. He said many things against Christians. I was talking to my brother the other day in BC, and he said a friend was at a conference where Justin Trudeau was, and he totally put down Christians. He said the reason why Canada, all the bad things in Canada can be attributed to Christianity. He said that. And I don't know how he got that, but I mean, maybe there are people out there who think that, but I mean, I don't think your thinking is really well thought out. If that's the case, I mean, it's possibly the opposite. If you think about it, what the foundation of what this country has been built on. Estelle, you got a lot of emojis there, a heart, a Canada, a thumbs up, and prayer, and I love that. It's like we could speak, we're going back to the days of like Egypt or whatever, when we're gonna just write with hieroglyphics, our own versions, our emojis. We can totally communicate with that. I love it. Good morning. Kenya's violent protests stopped government tax reforms. Interesting. So the world are standing up in different ways to different governments and things, and I'll have to check in on that. Kenya. And the people, I guess, are able to make changes. Who would have thought? But the violence is just the thing. It's, if we can do it without being violent, that would be great. And it doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes there's a place, not that I'm saying we need to do that at all, because I'm all for doing it non-violent. That's the last thing you'd ever want, is violence. But as we look throughout history, sometimes it comes to that, right? And yeah, whatever. So we don't want violence. We don't condone violence. We want to make changes without it. And I think that's where you make the most powerful. You're able to be the most powerful if you can make change without violence. Because if you start being violent, it means the other person then comes back with violence. And it doesn't always end up very good. I hope, this is Marianne, I hope they all do it anyways in Montreal. Be the change and say, blow it out your ear. Heart emoji, 3 Canadian flags. Appreciate that, Marianne, and I agree with you. Celebrate Canada Day anyways, even if they tell you you can't. But I guess they had a parade for Canada Day in Montreal. Guess only one group can have a parade at a time. Denise, I try to say things happen for a reason. Just keep it simple. Start with the basics and build. Have a great day, everyone. Busy for me. Yes, it would be. And I hear you. And thinking about you, Denise, and positive, thinking positive, sending positive vibes, as one of our viewers have said this morning. How can the government, this is Estelle, how can the government not allow celebrating Canada Day right here or right there? People should be alarmed. For sure. I would be. It sounds like we're seeing a trend anyways, right? It began with the fireworks being dangerous or polluting or, too loud, got to stop the fireworks. Well, that stops tradition. And when you stop tradition, what's coming in place of it? A new tradition, right? So this year we're going to have drones instead of fireworks at our Canada Day celebration at Science North. We'll see how that goes. Canada absolutely sucks. For the stables, yeah, your country is absolute garbage. So that's, I forget who that is because I'm seeing the handle and I know I've seen you before. Canada's garbage politicians are garbage. You can fix disability. Oh, yes, Jesse. Fix disability so that it makes all the citizens garbage. You can't fix disability, so that makes all the citizens garbage. Okay, well, thanks for your comments this morning, Jesse. I know it's a struggle, obviously, to be on disability, and it's, that is your struggle, and we all feel for you in your struggle as we all struggle in our different ways, and that is definitely one. I do have people that are very close to me on disability as well. And on one side, we're in a country that at least has it, right? At least has it. Not all do. It's a social safety net of sorts. Is it perfect the way it should be? It is not. And could it be a lot better? Yes. And we talk about that here. It's not a perfect world, but the more you advocate, what are things you can do? What people who can you write letters to? What you're doing here. You're able to get on and use this as a platform. So many, many people are listening to that. And so that's good too. Do all you can. And that's all you can do. Denise says, good morning, everyone. It's all a wonderful day. Brian says, if you reduced a dog's chain one link at a time every few days until the chain is too short, he won't even be able to move. He will never resist because he is conditioned to the loss of his freedom slowly over time. That's what's happening to us. I think that's very well said, and I've heard that analogy before, and it needs to be said even more because it is so true. Marianne, I always thought when you live near a military base, it was considered a no-fly zone. Correct me, Brian, if I am wrong, please. Okay, that's interesting. And Brian says, yeah, there is a geofence. And he shared the link to that if anybody is interested. Talking about chemtrails, right? And just being able to fly everywhere and spray the air everywhere. Okay, so moving on here. We got a great show today, so unfortunately we're just going to have to put everyone's comments up on the screen here as we move along, cover a little bit of local headlines, deep dive a little bit into what the heck with our weather and our ideology that we have going on these days. I watched the debate, the U.S. Presidential debate last night. Entertaining to say the least, and sad in some ways. Sad and entertaining. There was a few bright spots, but yeah, I was just thinking, is this what we've come to? What was the most powerful, or could be still, maybe for a little while, the most powerful country in the world. And these are the two leaders that we're choosing from. Wow. I know a lot of leaders because a lot of people that I know have a lot of leadership, whether it's business or whether it's community or whether it's in service or whether it's church or whatever it is, a lot of leaders. And most of them could have done a better job than both of the two people I was listening to on the debate last night. Communication, not the greatest strength of either of the candidates. And when you're a leader, you need to communicate to the people, at least. You need to have that. And I'm not dissing everything they've done or whatever. It would take a month long to unpack everything both of those presidents have done and whatever. But it was just in an hour and a half, I was just like, wow, incredible stuff. And I don't look forward to the debates of our country coming up before the elections at all. It's going to be worse, I think, than what I witnessed last night. Canada Day celebrations set to take place across the Northeast. Communities across the region will be celebrating Canada Day in a variety of ways this weekend as Canada changes all of their traditional ways that they've formerly celebrated Canada Day. We're going to be celebrating. So this is a positive headline from CBC, Canada's state-run media, right? You can see that. Communities across the region will be celebrating Canada in a variety of ways. So it's a positive headline. You know, we're changing your country one link at a time, as Brian was saying. And it's positive, and you're going to love it. As Klaus Schwab would say, you're going to own nothing, but you'll be happy. Meanwhile, the slogan should say, he's going to own everything, and he's going to be happy. But the truth rarely comes out in cases like that. Slogans oftentimes don't really, conceptualize what someone's really doing. Fish on free fishing week runs June 29th to July 7th. So you want to take advantage of that. You don't have to pay the government to fish. That's an interesting concept in and of itself. So celebrate Canada Day by dropping a line in the water without getting arrested or asked for a permit. That's from Sudbury.com. Ontario forest fires call for new job classification and better pay. This is CBC again. The union representing Ontario's forest fires want their job titles to be reclassified, which could result in higher pay. Remember that there's new landfill user fees when you go to the landfill. $5 it's going to cost you. And the headline from CBC, well, there's 3 CBC stories right at the top today. Will the new $5 landfill user fee increase illegal dumping in Sudbury? Probably not, one expert says. The fee is meant to boost city revenues while reducing the number of small load visits to the landfill. But some residents worry about it will lead to people dumping their trash elsewhere. And I am also one of those residents who feel that. We'll have to see, I guess. Right? We'll just have to see if you notice more garbage being dumped everywhere around the city instead of people paying $5. Okay, so just going through some of the stories here. So the Railroad Museum in Capreol is planning a party, live entertainment, food, and get this, fireworks. If you want to see fireworks and you're not a fan of the new drone show, you can head to Capreol on Canada Day. Look at these guys. They're very innovative and always having a great time in Capreol. Always putting on events and stuff. So that will be on Canada Day. That story comes to you from Sudbury.com. And watch out for bison on Highway 64. The herd escaped from Living Farm. So if you're traveling around that area, about 50 bison have escaped after fence damage. Now imagine that. Can you imagine if they don't get them back and there's a male and a female out there or one that's pregnant? You'll have a wild bison population before too long in the area up here. I'm not sure if we currently have a wild bison population, but that's interesting. So the police here have chosen a firm to recruit for them. Firm chosen, this is Sudbury Star, a firm chosen to recruit new chief of Sudbury Police. A new chief again? Seems like we're going through them quite quickly. Anyways, so there's going to be a firm going around headhunting for our new chief of police. Goal to have a candidate chosen by the end of September. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out to LaSalle Secondary's band, returning from Nationals with top honors. The jazz band from there and the concert band competed at Music Fest Nationals on May 17th in Toronto and returned home with gold and bronze ratings respectively. So congratulations to them. And now heading into our Friday focus, we're going to be speaking about climate. And with the climate comes a certain ideology that backs it up, right? And one of my favorite reporters, John Stossel, had something to say about that. And basically, I just found this yesterday. It's one of his newest, talking about ideology and climate. And we'll be back right after this. This is our Climate Focus Friday on CKLU 96.7 FM and Facebook and YouTube. Wrong one. If we got time for that, we're going to head into that. So here's John Stossel without further ado.
Activists have a new goal, degrowth. They say it might save the planet because if growth continues,
it means a future of climate chaos.
the no-growth idea is popular. More than 1,000 so-called experts signed this letter.
Calling for an end to a capitalist system which pursues growth at all costs.
Our addiction to economic growth is killing us.
Growth is not killing us, it is saving us.
Author Johan Norberg points out that growth is essential to human progress, especially for poor people.
Growth is most important for people who have the least. In poor countries, if you open up your economy, if you manage to grow by 4% annually over 20 years, that reduces poverty in that country on average by 80%.
But the activists claim
our addiction to making and consuming more stuff is exhausting the planet.
degrowth is better, they say, because it puts well-being ahead of profit. They say we should buy less stuff, grow our own food.
A smaller, slower economy could also be a sweeter economy.
A sweeter economy? This degrowth argument is just nonsense.
We've just had an experiment with degrowth, unintentionally, during the pandemic.
Suspending all travel from Europe.
States urging people to stay home.
Half the world's population was under house arrest. All the flights were grounded. Did that save us? No, it was a terrible tragedy for humanity. 60 million people were thrown into extreme poverty in that 1 year alone.
Yet some activists say the pandemic was a good thing. It gave the planet a break.
The global shutdown did a lot of environmental good.
Shutting things down did reduce carbon emissions, but
by no more than 6%. So if we wanted to reduce global warming, then we would need one pandemic like that every year, and that would be a terrible disaster for human life and health.
Yet that is what the degrowth movement wants. They say growth means climate change is worse, and we take up more space and we destroy nature.
If we didn't have any economic growth since the 1950s, we'd have slightly less global warming, but many more people, around 500,000 more people, would die because of climate-related natural disasters. In fact, the risk of dying has declined by some 90% since the 1950s. And that's not because we have fewer disasters or because there is no global warming. It's because we've had economic growth. And it means that we improve construction, we improve early warning systems, we improve healthcare, which means that we can deal with all these problems and all disasters in a better way than we would otherwise have had.
In addition to limiting harm from disasters, growth gives us more choices.
Growth is not really about money. It's about opportunity. It's about the chance of doing the things that we want to do with our lives.
Like pursuing work you enjoy and having more free time for leisure, friends, and family. Over time, even a little growth makes a huge beneficial difference.
If Sweden, my own country, had had just 1 percentage point lower economic growth per capita, then Sweden today would be as poor as Albania.
What's wrong with Albania?
Albanians are a quarter as rich as Swedes, and that shows in everything from life expectancy and child mortality to working conditions.
Albania's growth was limited by years of communism. As a result, today, these Albanians risk their lives to try to get to countries that grew richer.
Albanians now make up the single largest group arriving in small boats.
That's what you need to know about different economic and political systems. Look at where the refugees go. They always go from more socialist economies to capitalist economies. People risk their lives to get to freedom and to prosperity.
We urgently need to shift to a post-growth, post-capitalist economy.
A post-capitalist economy. Degrowth activists say the real enemy is capitalism. This professor says capitalism is at war against life itself. This degrowth advocate wins applause, saying,
urgently dismantle capitalism.
What then would be better? We invited him and more than a dozen other degrowth promoters to join us here to explain the evils of capitalism and how degrowth will be better. Not one would agree. This activist emailed that he'll pass because Stossel TV is nowhere near his standard of rigorous journalism. It's too bad that not one of them would come here to argue. I wanted to hear the capitalism haters explain what's wrong with free markets. Because Norberg's new book says the global free market will save the world. That's pretty grandiose.
But it is saving the world. Bit by bit, step by step, every day. Every day over the past 20 years, more than 130,000 people were lifted out of extreme poverty. Every day.
That means growth lifted millions from stoop labor, from burning manure from heat, from lives where they die young. And when people get richer, then they can afford to care about protecting nature. That's why rich countries have cleaner air, even water you can swim in. Only growth will give us the technology to reduce pollution and adjust to climate change. Degrowth would leave the world poor, miserable, and polluted. Since growth is good, I'm glad our YouTube channel's growing. If you want to help us get to 1 million subscribers, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you get our next video.
Yeah, so do the same for us because we'd like to get to 1 million subscribers as well at some point. We'd be happy if we'd be allowed to get subscribers, 1 subscriber at a time. We're not sure what's going on with that. But yeah, isn't that well said? Again, prosperity allows us to come out of poverty, which then allows us to have more efficient forms of fuel and less impact on the environment, right? And none of these people that are advocates for this degrowth movement would go on the show, right? Because they know they can't be in a setting where they're being questioned about it. It just won't stand, right? They can't really defend it. They can give speeches at a TED Talk or whatever, but that's about it. But as soon as it gets challenged, they're not able to back it up or to, That's why I always invite people on the show too. If you have an opposing view, if you're a pro-communist or whatever, whereas a lot of people in Sudbury that are, believe it or not, then yeah, like if you hear something on the show and let's say you don't agree with any of what we're presenting here, you're welcome. You just email me at sudburynews@gmail.com and say, I'd love to come on the show. I'm an advocate for communism and I love the current government and I like where we're going. I'm super progressive and I'd love the opportunity to come on your show and express my views and have you challenge them. And that would be a great conversation, right? Wouldn't that be like just a good conversation to have? And we can both prepare for it. And then maybe we'd have to have a follow-up discussion too, because it probably wouldn't be enough time. But anyways, sticking with our theme of the day, and I'm not sure what I just did here. We're going to go back to where we were and check in with a little bit of climate discussion nexus as I try and get through all of the things that Facebook has for me to click on. This is John Robson, Dr. John Robson, talking about climate. And he's Canadian too, right? From a Canadian perspective. They have a newsletter that they put out each and every week. So on Wednesdays, For more, just check out Climate Discussion Nexus, and we'll be back after this.
Climate Discussion Nexus, I'm John Robson with the latest readout video from our free weekly email newsletter, and also a hello to the windy city of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, number 41 on our list for total views, while it's still there. And I add that gloomy postscript because the latest climate alarmist gotcha is that, as Canada's state-funded CBC put it, quote, the increasing frequency of extreme weather events across the country has caused the sums paid out annually for catastrophic insurance claims to explode, and annual payouts for the last 4 years now rank among the 10 largest on record, says a New Statistics Canada study, end quote. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot wrong with this claim, starting with the fact that extreme weather events are not becoming more frequent across Canada, so they can hardly explain an upward trend in payouts, an explosion, or anything else. Instead, what there is more stuff on the ground, and more valuable stuff which they can damage when they do hit. The failure to adjust damages for the growing size of the economy when tallying up insured losses, and then blaming it all on climate change, has been lambasted many times by Roger Pilkey Jr., most recently in a new peer-reviewed article debunking the alarmist government agency NOAA's highly touted, media-friendly, billion-dollar disaster tally. But this alarmist jiggery-pokery just won't die. Here at CDN, we've done a series of videos showing that there's been no increase in extreme rainfall in Canada since 1950, and no increase worldwide going back in some places, where records permit, as far as the 1700s. But what there has been is an increase in paving floodplains, which creates terrible runoff problems. So yes, it is man-made. Not the weather, the flooding. And we also did a video on the fact that bad weather now hits more and more valuable property, which is why nominal damages have increased, especially because, again, there's poor land management by governments which then duck responsibility. So this scare is old news, and it's bad news. And speaking of what is and what is not going up, Canada's Environment and Climate Change Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, just X'd out that, quote, did you know that in 2022, more heat pumps were shipped to BC, 37,800, than natural gas furnaces, 30,700? This was a first for the province and shows us that the clean energy future is rolling in, end quote.
So I was going back and reading an article from our MP of Nickel Belt, formerly Nickel Belt, now renamed as the boundaries are being changed for that jurisdiction. However, I read an article on, he wrote about the carbon tax, and he said heat pumps are the future and whatever. And so I thought maybe we could go to Marc Serret's house at one point and just knock on the door and say, hey, Mark, we'd like to check out your heat pump. Because we know in your article you mentioned how they're all the rage, these heat pumps that you're condoning or saying that everybody needs to have, or that's the future. I want to see your heat pump just because I want to know the brand you bought, and I wanted to get the best one because you probably did your research. You know what kind of heat pump. And we all know that he wouldn't have a heat pump. Anyways, all liars, all hypocrites. Anyways, we'll continue.
No. It shows that the subsidies are rolling in. As one firm in the business puts it, quote, the terms of heat pump rebates in Canada vary from program to program. They are constantly changing, providing incentives to larger groups of citizens, end quote. And a day later, Blacklock's reporter informed us that, quote, the federal cabinet yesterday approved $103 million in subsidies for homeowners who switch from natural gas furnaces to electric heat pumps, but only in British Columbia, end quote. Ah, British Columbia? The province where the Trudeau-friendly NDP government faces an election this fall and seems to be slipping in the polls? Also, the federal NDP is propping up Guilbeault's minority regime. So, this clean energy future looks a whole lot like dirty politics past. In the newsletter, we also note that, fresh from their triumph in explaining how we can think like scientists, Scientific American presents a warning on how to detect conspiracy theories. Quote, dismissing traditional sources of evidence, claiming they're in on the plot. Claiming that missing information is because someone is hiding it, even though it's common that not all facts are known completely for some time after an event. Attacking apparent inconsistencies as evidence of lies. Overinterpreting ambiguity as evidence. Using anecdotes, especially vaguely attributed ones, in place of evidence. Attributing knowledge to secret messages that only a select few can grasp, rather than evidence that's plain and clear to all, end quote. Fine. That is a pretty good list. Now, apply it to all those who claim that all bad weather events are due to climate change, that climate skepticism is a lavishly funded Exxon New conspiracy, that a storm proves the weather's getting worse, that I'm sure summer's coming earlier, and scientists say, so don't you dare examine the evidence for yourselves. And here's an example. Quote, tornado season is here again, with twisters striking in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Florida over the past few weeks. But while severe storms in spring are nothing new, there have been subtle changes in tornado patterns in recent years that portend a more dangerous future for communities across the country. And even as the number of tornadoes has stayed relatively consistent in the last few years, experts say there have been key changes in their behavior over time that could have major consequences, end quote. Coincidence? Anecdote? Hidden knowledge? It's looking like a pattern. And of course, never mind that climate fluctuates over time for lots of reasons, some of which we don't know, because the most ambiguous and incomplete evidence just proves how clever they are. In the newsletter, we also return to the notion that on climate change you can say just anything. For instance, quote, Mumbai should drastically cut back on billboards, Indian author says after storm disaster, cyclones are getting more frequent in the megacity, and the built environment is making matters far worse, end quote. Actually, they're not getting more frequent in Mumbai. It's had exactly 3 cyclones in the last century, and one of them was in 1940, one was in 1948, and one was in 2020. There's even a YouTube video why Mumbai does not get cyclones. Moreover, the disaster in question involved at least 14 fatalities because an illegal billboard that was 37 by 37 meters, according to local reports, fell onto a gas station. At no time in history would such a structure have been safe in Mumbai or anywhere else. But when it's climate, facts have ceased to matter. Which is also why the New York Times can kick off a piece on insurance, quote, as climate change gets worse, the immediate effects are becoming painfully obvious. More frequent and severe storms, wildfires, hurricanes, and other types of extreme weather are wreaking havoc and pushing millions of Americans out of their homes each year, end quote. Not one of these things is getting worse. Careful long-term data shows that wildfires and hurricanes are becoming less frequent and serious in the United States, and millions of people are not being pushed out of their homes every year. But there's nothing climate change cannot do. It is even, an alert reader points out, killing off bees that aren't even dying. Quote, large bees are in decline due to climate change, end quote, whines something called Open Access Government, which is a bit of an odd name for a journal. Quote, climate change is a decisive factor in bee mortality, end quote, howls something called Bees for Life, while oddly putting climate change 6th on the list of causes for bees declining. And the publication UC Davis complains that, quote, climate change is ratcheting up the pressure on bees, end quote, before listing a wide range of totally unrelated issues like varroa mites and pesticides. Plus, bees simply aren't in decline. Another thing. From the Settled Science and Economics Department, quote, the macroeconomic damages from climate change are 6 times larger than previously thought, end quote, according to a paper from the American National Bureau of Economic Research based on a long chain of computer speculations. But what's especially strange about this story is that University College London also says, quote, economic cost of climate change could be 6 times higher than previously thought, end quote. Hang on, doesn't the fact that they agree tend to reinforce the claim? No, because the University College London one was in 2021, and the newest one is May 2024. So, is it now 6 times worse for 36 total times? Or are you all just screeching at clouds? In the newsletter, we also return to a very interesting issue thanks to a viewer who asked whether it's really true that climate alarmists say that half of human CO2 is rejected by nature, whereas the natural stuff is all absorbed. And the answer, strangely, is yes. For instance, then Prince Charles said it in his 2017 co-authored Lady Bird book, Climate Change. But you might say, he's not a climate scientist. So here's NASA's Scientific Visualization Studio. It uses computer models to bypass mere facts, and on this point says, quote, carbon dioxide, CO2, is the most prevalent greenhouse gas driving global climate change. However, its increase in the atmosphere would be even more rapid without land and ocean carbon sinks, which collectively absorb about half of human emissions each year, end quote.
Oh, I wish we can just continue with this. It's music to my ears, but you can check out This and much other videos and information in the newsletter, Climate Discussion Nexus. You can just Google them. You can find out their webpage and all of their social medias. Very informative. Now, it's just one fact after another fact after another fact, but I think they're getting better with their videos, getting better with the, being a little bit more listenable or watchable kind of thing, right? So shout out for them. They're on the ball when it comes to holding media accountable. So there's two layers to what we're doing there. It's showing, first of all, some real facts about what's going on with the climate. Second of all, showing how journalism isn't as reputable as it doesn't have as high standards as people think. Like they're just spewing out this information without really fact checking things. And so the media these days need a watchdog. So it used to be the media was the watchdog. Now the media needs a watchdog, which is independent media, which is what most people now are turning to. And that's why hardly anybody watches CNN anymore. Or speaking of that, the debate last night, that's the most viewers they would have had in a long time. Not too many people are paying attention to mainstream media anymore. People don't like being lied to, right? They want the truth. They just do. Even the people that still watch it think they're getting the truth, and that's the reason why they're watching it. And it creates divisions in society as these people who believe everything they hear on state-run media, and then they speak to somebody who's more informed, and then they get into an argument or whatever. It's dividing the country. It's dividing our world, right? So that's not a great thing. But anyways, we're here to bring everyone together. We're here to have a discussion. We know all the sides, and it's great to kind of try and make sense of the world we live in. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Have a great weekend. We probably won't be on Canada Day. We'll probably be celebrating it, and probably in Cape Ral where they have fireworks, right? Because I like fireworks. So hope to see you all there. And have a great weekend, everyone. Happy Canada Day for all that Canada is and all the people that made it great. Thanks to you, and thanks for everyone being on the show. We'll stay tuned now for Earshot Daily. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.